What's up, everybody? I thought I would give you a nice little scare as you're checking out your nice little can over there. Ooh, bars.
Ooh, keep going.
um, welcome everybody to the Alternative Blacks podcast. This is a special episode because it is Chris's birthday and it falls on a live day, so that's always a lot of fun. So, cheers to that.
Cheers.
So today we're gonna make sure. Yep. I hear audio. That's a good start. So today we're just gonna have a laid back conversation. There are one or two topics, but it's not gonna be too structured. But first things first. Happy birthday!
Beer. Oh wait, sorry.
I thought I'd switch it up on you.
Creature of habit.
Right. How you feeling, man?
I'm feeling older. I had some unwarranted hip pain yesterday, so just bringing in the new year the right way, I guess.
Oh my gosh, I hear that.
Feeling downtrodden, distressed. No, I'm okay.
You know what always lifts my spirits?
Beer.
That's right. What are you drinking?
Right now, I'm drinking one of my 8 beers that I've got received as a gift today.
Nice. You didn't get 30 beers?
No, I did not get 30 beers. I would have
31, I guess.
31 beers. That would actually that's a challenge to get 30 craft beers. I mean, that's money.
That is money.
8's enough. This is called Fair Acre Amber Lager. It is from Burlington Beer Company.
Fair Acre is the place to be.
And as you can see, it is amber and it is a lager.
Amber she be. I did not bring a glass downstairs.
You bring a glass.
And I'll explain why in a second. I am drinking from Brooklyn Brewing Company. It's a crisp, snappy, remarkable, refreshing brew that just so happens to be non-alcoholic. I got my non-alcoholic special effects Pilsner from Brooklyn Brewery because I am participating in a damp January.
Damp January?
Well, originally it was going to be dry, and it was New Year, so I was going to drink on New Year's, and I had a couple extra left over on the 2nd, so I finished them on the 2nd, and then everything went to...
Some residual moisture.
Right, everything went to, like, non-alcoholic after that. Then the Steelers snuck into the playoffs, so I did a shot of Michter's. Had to for Jim Bob. And then, to treat ourselves for being basically a week into it, we went to Tired Hands on Frankfurt Ave yesterday. And then we just did one, but then they wanted to do a milk tube. And so we did a beer and a milk tube. And then, for shits and giggles, they gave us a can of double dry hopped Alien Church for free. So we only paid for the first beers we had. The milk tubes were on them, and they gave us a beer to go.
So to celebrate 1 week of not drinking,
we drank.
Oh my God. So now you're drinking non-alcoholic for the rest of the foreseeable month.
Well, we're keeping it damp. I am still going to make the attempt on keeping shit dry, except for extenuating circumstances. We're going to be in Princeton on Saturday or Sunday. I feel like it's Saturday. I don't know why. I should look at a calendar. And so we're going to check out a brewery while we're there, just because there's not many reasons for us to be in Princeton. So while there, we're going to at least check out one. So that will be our like guilty pleasure for another week. And then so I think it's gonna just be rare circumstances, Steelers win another game.
Weekly circumstances.
Right. Yeah. So
what spurred the decision? Was it just kind of a New Year's resolution type deal, like starting the new year,
Yeah,
doing?
I think I feel like I don't know. I can't see it being my idea initially, but it may have been in a weird moment. Um, but however it went, we both
Can't
decided it
remember
was
if
a
we
good
did, you
idea,
know.
and I just thought, there's more than enough like non-alcoholic options out there now. So why don't I just start exploring? Not even just the beer, but even at the one grocery store down the street, they have wine, whiskey, gin, tequilas are all non-alcoholic. They're not called those things. They're whiskey like substitute shits. But
Yeah,
I thought it would be fun enough to try and go after it. I mean, even like a lot of places have mocktails and stuff like that now. So even going to these places, it's not completely like, oh, well, there's no fun.
yeah, I guess that's a fair point. I think and actually that's funny that you mentioned that, because they're going to be doing some like a mocktail event next Wednesday at Alyssa's place of employment. So we're probably going to check that out, and it's kind of like an interactive learn how to make some mocktails.
Yeah.
So maybe is January, is this like a thing for January generally?
Yep, dry January is usually a thing. It's just a reset. It's like any kind of cleanse. It's something to help your liver out.
I mean, you could just have some sauerkraut and call it a day. I
Right,
mean,
exactly.
call it a year.
Yeah, but I thought I enjoyed this idea. Non-alcoholic beers might have a larger place in the fridge, because for
Yeah.
instance, this pilsner is actually really good, and I mean like the reason I was calling it dryish anyway, I never even started off as dry. I said dryish, and it just got wet, even more wet, so it's damp. It's because anything under like 5%, like
All right, I see now. I see now what you're doing. Sure.
so. I think that's where I was gonna like play more often going
You know,
forward. Is like if I can keep it 5 or lower throughout like a week, and then like enjoy my heavy hitting stuff on like weekends or during the lives. I think that's how I'm gonna try to go about it. Just to
so basically, you're just going to go to like a mainstream beer drinkers alcohol consumption.
because I think what happened is I found myself like I still wanted the beer, and for me it's not, oh, I want to drink to like get drunk or anything like
The
that.
alcohol kind of gets in the way of it a lot of the time, right? Like, because it's kind of like, I think we both would agree that at least for craft beer, like we're drinking it for, I think for everything really, we're drinking all this stuff for the taste because we enjoy drinking it for the taste, you know. I think
Exactly.
you don't really get into drinking for to just drink until you get into like really cheap mixed drinks. I feel like really cheap beer, really cheap mixed drinks if you're just drinking to get drunk, you know, and I don't think that's something that either of us do regularly. So I agree with you with that in terms of like a lot of these beers that we enjoy, they're all at least 7%. And so Wednesday night, that can derail things quickly.
Seriously. I'm going to continue moving on with our conversations. Get to hear a little bit more about your beer, but I just quick checked the chats. Um, Harry,
Check
we're
it.
getting old. Life is all about compromise. Am I right? Two of them are at Casey's now, apparently. I'm not sure what we're talking about.
Well, I must say, this beer that I have, like it says an amber lager, it's okay. I don't, I think it could be better.
Yeah.
But it's a German style amber lager too, so there's that.
And what brewing company again?
Burlington Beer
Oh,
Company,
okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Vermont. Yeah, it's good. It's good. There's two others from them. There's like a dry hop lager and a dry hop pilsner, I think, or just lager, and a dark lager. I'm excited for the dark lager. I figured I'd start with the amber and go from there. So
Just stripping.
yeah, is that a two robber shirt?
It's the Two Robbers, the Veil, and I think it's the Veil and Carbon Copy. It was their
Oh
collaboration.
yeah, yeah. You know, it's funny that I actually before I knew that I had gift beer at home, I had stopped at the beer store on the way home from work,
That's
and
what two of them are at Casey's now. Apparently, we're talking about the beer.
oh yeah, I left my beer there.
Sorry, I was doing some sleuthing on the chat.
You've been sleuthing. Um, yeah, so like the Veil, I saw a 4 pack from the Veil. I picked it up. I haven't had it yet, but that's we're going down Virginia Way this weekend for an extended weekend, and Vail's one of the spots I want to check out.
Yeah, I was gonna actually. That was funny enough. One of the conversation points I wanted to get into today because I knew you were heading down. I'm assuming for your birthday. Yeah,
Yeah, sorry, I was in the middle of a drink there.
no, that's fine.
Yeah, going down for the birthdays, see Harry's area, maybe check out some breweries down there. We'll definitely check out some breweries down there.
Yeah,
Plan is to stay a night like in Richmond area and then go down further south to his area for a few days. So
yeah. So I don't know what the weather's supposed to look like down there. I can send you the like little pin of the tennis court where the Arthur Ashe mural is.
ooh,
That's in Richmond. That's really cool because I mean, like Richmond's, I believe where he's from. So there's some cool like Arthur Ashe stuff down in the area that should definitely check out. Just don't know if the weather's gonna be nice enough to play tennis, but it'd be really cool to see it anyway. The park's really cool. Um, and definitely the beer scene. I'm just really excited. Don't know where you're staying. I don't really know much about Richmond. But we went to Star Barn or something like that. I'll send you what that was called because there's a bunch of breweries in that area. I think the Answer's in that area as well. So
yeah,
it's a good like one to just it's a good area to be and just like jump from place to place.
okay.
As I just
Yeah,
throw my hand to the camera.
that's kind of the plan, man. Just check some new breweries out, hit Virginia AA and drink some IPAs.
For I got nothing. I'm trying to figure out how do you make a Virginia IPA. Virginia
Virgin, Virginipa, Virgin,
Virginipa.
Virginipa, a virgin IPA,
Oh,
which is what you could be drinking right now, Tyler, but you went for the Pilsner
I have
instead.
an IPA. So Brooklyn, it came with like four different beers. It came with a hoppy amber, which I don't like.
All non-alcoholic?
Yeah, all non-alcoholic. So it came with the hoppy amber, which I don't like at all. Um, it had the pilsner, which is really good. I think for a non-alcoholic option, pilsner is kind of the way to go. Um, because it's light anyways, you're not really expecting anything but like crispness out of it. So that's really
Mhm.
good, and it's hoppy, so it's a hoppy crisp like drink. Um, there is a regular IPA, which was surprisingly uh, good. I don't know what's missing. Well, the alcohol is missing. Um, but I don't know if it like affects the carbonation or something like that too, because there's like
And
an
it does
emptiness.
because you do get carbonation from the yeast eating, like that's part of the process is the yeast creating the sugar, you get a little bit of gas off of that process. So
So
they have to pump more gas into it
right,
to,
yeah, I'm wondering if that's like they need to like amp it up a little bit. But the IPA was fine, but then there's a grapefruit IPA as well that they offer, which is actually funny because the regular IPA has grapefruit notes, and then the grapefruit IPA.
has more than grapefruit
Yeah,
notes.
but I don't like the grapefruit one either, and I think it's funny because the ones I like are the ones that Hannah really doesn't care for, so it kind of worked out.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah, perfectly.
yeah, and then I have another. I did just picked up some from Sierra Nevada. I'll grab that as my next beer.
Um, Speaking of all the non-alcoholic stuff, we had talked about, and I've had the only non-alcoholics I've had in the past where I've had the Bells had one, I believe.
They have
Or
the
low cal. That was a low cal, I'm
yeah,
thinking.
yeah, and those are the other ones I'll probably end up drinking as well. But because I like
Yeah,
slightly mighty,
or
but lighthearted, lighthearted.
lighthearted. Yeah, I was thinking of was it Athletic or Athletico or whatever
Yeah,
that had come out that had kind of hit around while we were all still inside. And I've had their beer, and actually like surprisingly like decent. A lot of the same descriptions that you're having with the Brooklyn beers. Like I think there's just obviously there's a limitation because you have to alter the process, so it's going to be different. But honestly, it's a good alternative. I think it's a really good alternative for people who want to kind of coast more.
yeah, and so what actually ended up being a question we'll get back into because we got to get back into Virginia and some of your hopes while down there. But
In Virginia.
in
Okay.
no,
No,
um, the big question I've had with these non-alcoholic beers is does it become not accessible? Does it become acceptable to pack them for lunch?
that's not where I thought you'd be going with the conversation. Okay, but so what is the actual, because there is alcohol in it, right? It's
So
just below a threshold.
yeah, I mean technically I think most of them are like around point 0.5. Some of them are advertising a straight zero.
Okay.
Um
I know the Heineken's, they call it zero.
right. But like for instance like hop water for instance like it's just hoppy water, right? Um
Yeah, but that's like the difference between getting a beer and a seltzer.
so like I think the question like really comes down to it for me is like because of the branding of this, right? I could see coming into work with a non-alcoholic beer and it looking bad, right?
Well, here's your question, and you didn't bring a glass, and now we can't experiment. But maybe with the next one, when you pour it, what does it look
It
like?
looks like beer. It does.
Well,
But I mean, if I
some,
drink it out of a can, like I drink like soda or something, you know?
yeah, you just have to cover the B up with your thumb or something, and then it just looks like one of those fizzy seltzer waters.
Here's like what a callback to in Virginia. Uh,
What a callback! Hey, well, that's what we do here. We just call back the things.
way back. Uh,
Yeah, and we're speaking about Virginia, and isn't that the clip song that came from?
I think so. Yeah. Shit. What was I gonna say about this though? Well, I guess like what I think some of like the Goya, like the Maltas or whatever, like those malted beverages growing up were
Yeah.
like those had like 0.5%. You know?
Well, they used to have alcohol in them, but then they cut that out.
Well, that's stupid.
So is the guy drinking a non-alcoholic beer right now.
Um,
What
so
I'm doing is stupid.
I I would love to explore that eventually, though. The what the actual policy would be like. Are businesses going to be more like on board with that, or does that open up a like dangerous threshold? Because now, like, are you going to be monitoring everybody's drink there? Is somebody going to try to abuse the system and sneak in, a 90-minute in the mix? You know.
Here's what I would say to that. I think whenever you start talking about like, oh, it's a slippery slope type of deal, it's kind of like the people that were going to abuse something like
They're
that
going to
are
abuse it
probably
anyway.
anyway.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So it's kind of like if you said, okay, non-alcoholic beer is fine because it's the same as bringing a soda, right? Um, or a seltzer, right? a non-alcoholic seltzer essentially at this point, because there's alcoholic seltzer is now like the new craft beer scene type of deal, right? So it's in a way, right?
Well,
There's like a culture about it.
well, now I'm laughing because a friend was telling me about this cider ale. He went to Hale and True Cider Co. in South Philly, which is this really good hard cider. And he was like, "We should go." I said, "Yeah, if we uh, after January, because I'm doing all of this, unless they have like some non-alcoholic cider." And then I go dot dot dot. I guess you would just call it cider.
I guess so, right? Exactly. Because like that's the thing. What is non-alcoholic beer? Like you can't call it something else.
Right, malted beverage.
So is that the issue though? Like, is the issue that like with stuff like that, it is technically now the same thing as a non-alcoholic cider or just like a non-alcoholic seltzer, right? It is just a non-alcoholic version of something that's alcoholic. Yes, that's true. But seltzer and cider don't need to be alcoholic in the first place.
Right, so you're
The
just drinking
beer
seltzer.
is an alcohol, a fermented alcoholic malt beverage that you've altered. So maybe that's where the difficulty is getting it into, we're trying to get into the schools, man, and I don't know if we can do that right now. We gotta
Yeah,
back a little
no,
further.
because I that's how I've seen some of it branded as a non-alcoholic malted beverage. Um,
What is non-alcoholic beer but big league chew?
right, they were training us to do chew tobacco from a young age anyway. So I mean, if Big Tobacco can do it, why can't?
Yeah, that's wacky to me.
um, I'm gonna grab my other beer, but I think you brought up a good point because Barrel and Flow this year introduced, the kids tent, the trying to do the brewing process, introduce like stem and steam and all of that into the equation because these festivals end up being almost a family affair anyway. Um, and I looked into it more. I For some reason I thought you could go to beer school like out of high school, but like a lot of these beer programs are requiring you to be 21 years or older to learn how to brew beer. And I think that's kind of, in a way, it's like fucked up in a little bit, like because it's like, okay, you gotta wait. You graduate high school, you gotta wait 3 years to potentially get into like your quote unquote. Yeah, I just love it to get into your craft. Um, uh, but like, what is the exposure to that? Because it kind of feels weird to be like, unless you're born into a brewery or like got some experiences like a lot of people did with bar backing and stuff like that, where they were like just the dish boy
Yeah,
or the kitchen person around something like craft beer adjacent. How do you get into it at an earlier age? Like, was there a potential for us to learn about this, fall in love with it, and rather than me going to school for like video, I went to school right away to brew. Like, what does that look like? Because you get pushed to do college a lot, and then you get pushed to do trade school a lot, but you
yeah.
have to
I
wait
mean,
so much longer to get into this point.
it is weird because you are around an alcoholic beverage. I think part of it, I mean, well, the biggest issue is the fact that, we have one of the highest drinking ages in the world, if not the highest. I don't know. Is there any legal drinking age higher than 21?
I don't know, but yeah, you're right. I mean, if you're in Germany,
If you're in Germany, you're fine,
yeah,
right? This isn't even
you're
a
like, oh shit,
discussion.
this is what I want to
Yeah, so move to Germany, step one.
do. Go back in time.
Yeah. Stay, you want to leave, just run away. Go into the forest, into the Black Forest, and don't come back.
Fuck you, Dad. I'm gonna brew.
Yeah, yeah, right. He'd be over there so fast, pluck you out of the forest.
I thought you were gonna say
Um,
you'd be really proud.
yeah, maybe he would just leave you there.
That's my mom.
That's fine. Yeah, that's my boy. I say outside of that, I mean, that's really the big thing, right? Because that's what creates the dilemma.
Mm,
Technically, you're making something that isn't legal to make for your consumption, but I guess the question is like, is it any different than you going to work as a cigarette manufacturer, where the whole point of it is it's controlled because it's like it's something that's detrimental to your health to consume in large quantities, right? And it should be consumed with responsibility. But cigarettes, on the other hand, it's like a whole stigma. It's only a stigma thing, really, at the end of the day, because those are terrible no matter how many you're doing or how old you are, right?
right.
So,
I found
if you-
one drinking age that's higher than 25, and that's I don't even know how to pronounce this. Eritrea,
Eritrea,
Eritrea, Eritrea.
Eritrea, East Africa.
Yeah, um, and that's 25.
Wow, that's pretty crazy. Eritrea, which I believe is like on the coast surrounded by Ethiopia.
I think so. That sounds right.
If I'm correct, I believe they like seceded or pulled away from Ethiopia at some point. If I remember my history, I don't know.
Yeah.
Point is,
I wanted to comment on this real quick because I was thinking about you a lot today. Uh, it was your birthday, thinking about the last, 20 some years of friendship. Um, but I think one of the things I've always admired about you is when you learn about something, when you specifically learn about something, like you get really like interested in something, or like certain things stick with you and you just know them. So like with history and stuff like that, a couple of like specific history points that you like know, or like you definitely know more about Africa than I know for sure. But two, I was thinking more about like even like the routes to get somewhere. Like where I could tell somebody the directions on how to get somewhere, but I'm not going to be using the fucking like, oh yeah, you want to take 76, and then when it like you get off that blah blah blah. Right? I never would. I'm awful at that. I've gotten a lot better at knowing because of driving a lot more, but it's not something that comes like naturally to me. Where I
well,
felt
you
like
can
you've always
understand
been
it.
that person.
What I understand is where the bland lines are, and then you'll be fine.
This is just the callback episode.
This is an entire callback episode
Oh
to
my god.
the landlines in Virginia. Yeah, I appreciate that. It's funny. I think I brought some random historical fact up last night, and Alyssa mentioned the same thing in terms of like retaining information. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
you
all
just
useless information to me. Like, what am I using that for? But
no, but it's fun. I always enjoy. Well, I think that's one of the reasons why I like this show so much. Uh, Weird to say about your own show, but one of the reasons I love this show so much is
I
because of
love
getting to
the
talk
show
to
so much.
you. Getting to talk to you about like a variety of topics and just seeing like what wealth of knowledge like you pull from, and like what reference or like where you're gonna like pull something out of. It's always fun. Um, so yeah, and I just definitely appreciate that about you.
Oh, I appreciate you appreciating something about me, I guess. No,
I can tell you're getting stronger.
you know why this show is so good? I can tell my show is so good because you're good on the show, man.
I can tell you're getting
Um,
better at the show because I'm getting better at the show.
yeah, see the callback episode. What were we talking about? Oh, how to indoctrinate the kids into beer early on. So I think, honestly, I think it's just a matter of like changing the stigma about it because it's one of those things like I just said, like you wouldn't say that if a 16-year-old went to work in a production job, um, and the laws said you can work in a factory job at say 17, right? I don't know if you can. I think there's might be labor laws against that, but let's just it's completely independent of what you're making generally, right? So if they're making cigarettes, which legally what you can't have until you're 18, technically. But there's a whole, but the culture around smoking is different than the culture around drinking for some reason,
All right.
because prohibition completely screwed a lot of things up. So you end up with like you end up with this scenario where it's like if you went to work in a factory that makes cigarettes, so you have to be 18 then if you were otherwise allowed to work at the factory next door that's just making bread. You know
Right.
what I mean? So like what's the difference there? You're not partaking in it. You're not consuming it as a product. You are producing it. And as we've learned, like there are so many interesting there's so many interesting things that you can learn from brewing in terms like just like scientific things, um, production things. It's it's a physical job. So I feel like there's a lot of benefits to working in beer.
And it's an interesting point you brought up. When it comes to learning, a lot of the times it's about finding the right connection to make the subject matter, digestible for you or even fun for you, right? And so for me, science was a really hard thing to get behind because I was never able to make it fun. And now I'm like looking at these homebrewing books and I'm like getting to these like points with like all this stuff related to beer, but the science element of it, and it's not that I'm not excited for that part. It's that my the fear hits there first because I'm like, I know this is not my strength, but I'm excited to learn about it. But I know like if I would have had a little more excitement about that specific element of science earlier, it might be easier for me to digest this now and get in and like understand it a little better. I think I'm gonna have to take like a couple steps back and relearn some things um, that
So
might have made
yeah,
it easier for me.
I would say in terms of like the fear aspect, like it's more of a like you have a BS degree, right? Like not BS, but BS instead of BA.
I have a bachelor of science. Yes.
Yes. So the whole thing about a BS degree versus a BA is kind of like it's more like your thought process and how you think about your topic of
Right.
choice. So like it's no different than all of the technical aspects and thinking about how you go about producing something, producing a piece of media,
Right.
piece of, it's kind of the same thing. It's like you look at something, you're like, okay, what are the main building blocks that make up this thing that's beer? All right. Then you just go through each small thing. All right, now how do they interact? Oh, okay, I see now. And then you just kind of build on that until you're able to conceptualize how it happens. And it is harder with chemistry just because you can't really see it on the level that it's actually working at.
Right.
Like obviously you can see, oh, it's fizzing up, the yeast is working.
Yeah.
But you can actually see the yeast down there like eating the sugar, you know what I mean? So yeah, and then pooping out alcohol or whatever they
I
do, right?
got it. We're going to create a children's show around making beer.
It's gonna be like Veggie Tales.
Exactly.
But
Yeasty
for beer.
Tales.
Yeast. I'm getting another beer.
I'll explain what I'm drinking while you're doing that. My next non-alcoholic beer is Sierra Nevada's non-alcoholic IPA. Contains less than 0.5% alcohol. And I think what drew me to this, I had seen like they had two different versions. I went with the IPA. I think the other one's like a lager. But I'm currently reading Ken's book about Sierra Nevada. I'm just got to the point where he's made it to Chico, California, where this place exists now. And this is actually really good. It still has that like I wish there was a little more carbonation and everything, but I find this really enjoyable. My other like goal for this year is after receiving the Untapped, year in review, I actually
Yeah.
drank less. Like I had, I gotta think about how to frame this. I know I definitely checked in less last year, um, but I also consumed from less breweries last year.
Okay.
It wasn't as like there wasn't as big of a variety of like breweries, and it doesn't mean like new breweries. It just means breweries in general. And so
Yeah.
my goal this year is to drink from 100 different breweries. Doesn't mean I'm
And
actually gonna go there.
you decided to do this goal, and you started the year doing a moist
Hold
January.
up though, doing Sierra Nevada as a because I still can check these in.
That you can check the non-alcoholics in.
So
Yeah.
this Sierra Nevada will be my fourth this year.
So you're in moist January, and you already have four different brewery check-ins.
Yep, Collective Arts, Brooklyn Brewer, Tired Hands, and Sierra Nevada now.
Man, you guys are really dry over there.
They're non-alcoholic.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So a question though with that was like, what do you think? What do you think that was? Do you think it was just a matter of your circumstances? Like, I feel like maybe now that you were down in Philly now for this was your third year because you moved around this time, right?
Yeah, I moved. I
So
was literally New Year's Day when I moved down to Philly.
yeah, so literally on the year, this is your third year,
Yeah, because
your
I
fourth
moved
year.
2020.
Right. So now you're into you've completed 3 years. I feel like Philly's a big place, right? And I think now after the third year, you probably have now kind of gotten a grasp on what the scene is, what the places are, and I think that might contribute to the fact that, those first obviously you can't count 2020 for much of anything, but then like 2021, 2022, you're now being able to explore things. Things are opening back up. People are, transitioning into opening up these breweries, trying to, hit on coming off of the pandemic. And I think there's just more opportunity there to go to places. And now that you know what you like, you know where to go, it's kind of like I'm going to stick to what I know is good. And if I hear or see something new, then I'll quick try it. And so I don't know if it's necessarily a bad thing.
Yes, sorry. While you were doing that, I was trying to like touch Zoom as well, and I completely moved us around on the screen. So there's a
Yeah,
bunch.
I was kind of seeing that happen. I'm like, what's going on?
um, no, I think you're right in a way in terms of like where I'm going, what I'm checking out. In terms of breweries are concerned, you definitely won't see some of like the micro breweries get put on there as much. So when I think about like places like Cartesian, like I don't show up at Cartesian as much. I still think I
Yeah.
do every once in a while. But I think the smaller guys that before I was definitely trying to hit all the time, that doesn't change. And especially if you're in a city that has a very specific or a very limited distribution, uh, you're going to places and you're just going with what's comfortable. And I think
True.
especially with like our collaboration with Love City last year as well, you definitely saw me drinking Love City more consistently. So there was more loyalty towards certain breweries or places. You know, I was at Humble Parlor a lot last year towards the end of the year. So
But it's like one of those things where it's like, I think now we're kind of understanding, like, you get to a point where, the dabbler in you is settling down in an area, right? So you only now, like, and I'm in the Lancaster area for a long time now. So it's like the dabbler portion, like, oh, I gotta go try this. That's kind of settled down. You've tried what you wanted to try, and you're only going to dabble when something new opens up,
right.
or you can change it up. And that's not going to happen as much, or you leave the area and go somewhere else to dabble.
Yeah, like I think even in previous years, I was looking at like, oh, let me finally like try to close in at 2,000 beers, and I need to have this many beers a day, and they need to be different, like. So I was just going out of my way to try as much as possible versus like, oh, I'm still not at 2,000, but I'm not like, I'm not actively attacking it as hard. And the only time I'm
Yeah.
really like looking for something that's obscure or different is, oh, it's Oktoberfest season. So let me see where's an Oktoberfest that I haven't had before. Or, oh, I really like smoked Helles. Like,
Yeah, I
I
think
noticed
maybe
that.
that's the other thing about it too, is the fact that I think we've finally hit the point where we've had enough of every style, that we've caught up to what the style creation, and now it's just kind of, I feel like the innovation of craft beer is now in like making tweaks within a style, and to the point where I think we know what we like now more so than ever. So it's kind of like you're not gonna go to a place and just hit all the beers to try all of them. You're gonna go, I'm in an Oktoberfest type of mood today, or a Marzen type of mood today. I want a Pilsner today. I want a stout today. And so we're kind of more pointed with our consumption, I guess.
Yeah, unless it's not. I think when I'm making a deliberate effort to go someplace, maybe I'll try to get a flight as well. But if it's a
Yeah.
more impromptu trip to a brewery and like I'm really only going to be sticking around for like one, I think that also stops me from getting a flight because I'd
Okay.
much rather enjoy like a whole like beer versus a little bit of different beers. Because most times when I do a flight, I do the flight off of the ones I think are the most exciting, and then I will choose my beer based off of that flight selection.
Right. So if you're only going to go for like one, it doesn't make sense to do a flight because like flights for me too are just like, I feel rushed, I guess, particularly if you're trying to check them in. It's a lot. So I just want I'll go for a beer and maybe I'll be back for another one
Yeah,
at some other point.
yeah.
Um,
It's,
but I don't usually transition topics, but I wanted to talk with you about this one quickly. Have you heard that Chatty Monks has rebranded?
so I saw, and I'm trying to understand if they have. Are they doing a complete rebrand in terms of both locations are going to be Chatty Monks, or I thought maybe their Carroll Street location would become Pagoda City, and they would still have Chatty Monks on Penn.
So this is what they've done. The so they have three locations because you remember they have the location in the farmers market.
Yes.
So the business is now Pagoda City. All the beer will be can labeled Pagoda City. It's all Pagoda City as the rebrand. Chatty Monks in West Reading and the Chatty Monks location in the farmers market will keep Chatty Monks name as the name of the place, but it will be serving Pagoda City's beer. Pagoda City is now the brewer. And in the location that's in Carroll Street near Schlegel, that's going to be Pagoda City. And I was reading up on it. They mentioned the fact that this was basically kind of in the works since the new owners bought the brewery back in 2021. That they were that they were always looking to rebrand. They mentioned the fact that they wanted to make the brand more of a Reading City brand, which is why they went with Pagoda City. They mentioned being one of two breweries that are actually within the city limits, although yes, it is in the city limits technically, I guess, but it's on the very edge.
Yeah, grow a set of balls and open up in Center City. Like,
Yeah, like Saucony did.
I mean, but yeah, like in a way,
I mean, seriously,
Saucony
like
has more balls than.
say what you want about how they went about making the business decisions that they made in terms of what to do with the space. They actually did something with something down in Center City. and they were kind of getting killed for it in terms of wanting to go down there in the first place. But you got to applaud them attempting to do that.
I mean, this actually takes me to a whole different conversation because Reading Distilling, unfortunately, is closing down their Penn Street location.
Damn.
Yeah, and for all these things being said, uh, here's two businesses actually having the balls to open up in like city proper, right? Reading Distilling has always been a Reading company, like it's actually producing in Reading, and then they had a couple pop-ups in different spaces, one being West Reading at one point, but then they moved down, like they moved into the heart of Reading, so to speak, right? They're right there on Penn Street, on like what, Fifth and Penn, Fourth and Penn, like
Fifth and Penn, yeah.
yeah, huge like commitment to go down there or something, and they did some fun stuff. They had a decent crowd, but again, from leadership within the city of Reading itself, there wasn't a like strong enough. In my opinion, there's not enough of a focus on that strip of Reading yet for a place like that to exist. I feel like Reading Distilling opened up in like Lancaster, which we have equivalents to look at in Lancaster. It would have succeeded. It would have done well. But because you're not bringing in that person to downtown, or not, I don't know. There's a lot of different nuances to it. But I feel like Reading Distilling didn't fail as much as were failed.
Yeah, it's like there's just nothing down there. And the only thing that's going in down there is like this Alvernia stuff that's not really bringing like any business down there, really. Because at the end of the day, the kids are going there and then they're leaving, getting the fuck out of there, right? Like that's it.
Right.
It's just still like the businesses that are down there have been there forever and have like the old local like customer base, and that's the only reason they're surviving. Like there's nothing bringing people down there anymore.
Yeah,
it's been like that since we can remember, right? So I mean, that being said, at the end of the day, at least Pagoda City is technically in city proper. If anything, they have to pay property taxes, or someone's paying property taxes for that business to the city. So maybe at least we can talk about at least there's that.
Yeah, I think my saltiness may stem from Chatty Monks being like one of the, I wouldn't call it pioneers of like craft beer in the area, but they were one of the bigger,
like, an OG.
Yeah, they're definitely a driving force in Berks County craft beer. And so I think, to be around long enough to see it start as Chatty Monks and see it thrive and like build out, and then it just feels like an early rebrand, and I don't know for necessarily what.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said about the fact that, I think we might have like the nostalgia glasses on and the rose-colored glasses on for what it was in its heyday, but I've heard about some of the way that the business itself was run, and it wasn't great at all. And clearly something was wrong, that the business was sold at some point to completely unrelated people that took it over. Yeah. So, it's one of those things. I get the nostalgia aspect of it. I do think it's fair enough that they're going to keep the OG location and the market location, as this is still Chatty Monks. This is the Chatty Monks tap room at the market. This is still Chatty Monks in West Reading, but the beer is technically going to be branded such a way. But I mean, if you're at the place, if you're at West Reading or at the market, generally you're getting stuff on tap. You probably won't even notice a difference, because it's not like they're changing the brewers. It's not like they're changing anything. It's just a rebrand, right?
I hear it. I don't like it, but I.
Oh, You're not the old man yet. I'm the old man. You can't be the old man grumpy right now.
Of course I fucking can. No, it makes sense. It does. I guess it's just holding on to something old, um, which is dumb. Like it's all about innovation. It's all about moving forward. Um, I guess
I
for
will
me,
say though, the fact they don't have endoplasmic reticulum on at all times is a
it's a
travesty.
travesty. So yeah, they should be rebranded anyway. Um, I guess I would have rather just seen a like new brewery versus a brewery with a new name.
You know, I do think that they've been that since the new ownership's taken over. I mean, if like the collab, some of these collabs that they've
Yeah,
come out with, for Barrel and Flow, I mean, they've been kind of in a completely different direction than what old Chatty was doing. So I think in a
upgraded.
way they've kind of been switching that product slowly in that direction anyway.
Yeah, they have some crazy. Forget what those were, like the stouts or the porter or whatever that they had. There's like fucking. They had like 14 percenters on
Yeah,
draft.
they had some heavy stuff there. And then like the stuff with the collabs was like the
Oh,
one was
just
like a tea,
so out there.
you know, like they just they've definitely had like a direction that they want to go in. And so I think it's fair enough that they're going to rebrand because they are moving in that direction. And maybe it's just maybe they you look at Chatty Monk's old beer and it's like they got on the goes train and the sour train a little bit when that was getting hot. But really before that, their claim to fame was like IPA
Yeah,
and like a pretty decent like stout milk stout.
yeah, that's
So
true.
they weren't really doing anything out of the box, really. They just made really good beer. So if you're gonna switch away from that, then fair enough.
Fair
Fair
enough.
enough. Switch the name up.
I've been convinced. I still don't like it.
It, it was the curled back, the curled old man back as you got out of the chair.
Okay, so third beer, um, and this was why I also was going to be calling this a damp January, was because of the fact that I knew we were going to have at least two of these shows, and I knew I was only going to get so far with the non-alcoholic stuff because otherwise I would just be like throwing them back the whole time. It'd be like me sitting here and doing like PBR the whole show.
Yeah, who would do PBR for an alternative blacks episode?
I
No one's
definitely.
ever done that.
Do you remember Steven getting like so pissed off when I like even considered it? I was like, I think I'm just gonna
No,
do
no, that was
PBR.
me and
Everybody got
Steven when I
pissed
told Steven.
off.
We were both pissed off at you.
It's like, I'll be
I
fine.
just got PBR. It's like, that's not what we're about.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of what we're about, but not what we're about.
So, with that being said, I grabbed the. I had one of these left over. It's the 21st
Grapefruit,
Amendment,
the grapefruit,
Blood Orange.
dude, I love those beers.
They're so good. We got them just to do some like puzzles the other night, like in December, and we. I'm
The other
not.
night in December, huh?
Yeah, they know they were leftovers, and
Wait, how dry has this January really been?
it was December. Like
The other night in December. Okay. Uh-huh.
it was December. This has just been sitting in the fridge, and I can't just let them like ferment back there. So
Yeah, if you leave a non-alcoholic beer in the fridge long enough,
these are good questions.
you know, someone's got to ask these the hard-hitting questions.
Um, speaking of hard hitting questions, you had shared an article
Yeah.
from Afro Beer Chick in Chicago. It was about a topic that I wanted to actually address with you. I just forgot to send it to you, so it was good timing that you had sent it over. We discussed that theater in Chicago is being revamped and brought back to life through the help of Quincy Jones, Jennifer Hudson, and Chance the Rapper. And part of that was going to include a beer garden that was done through Other Half because they will never stop expanding. With that being said, I guess they did a soft open for like the beer community and or just the community in Chicago, which I'm a little. I can't wait to be part of a community like that, like to be considered the community
Yeah,
like that. I know we are in a way with like at least with Love City considered that, and I've had some other really good experiences at other breweries in the past, but just to really be considered would be delightful. Anyway, I'm gonna let you explain a little bit more of the rest since you actually made the effort to share.
yeah. Um, so Afro Beer Chick, who's like whenever I'm not even on Instagram that much,
Yeah.
as anyone could probably tell. Um, but I if I am on Afro Beer Chick's not someone I see post a lot. So the fact that I saw her post within like the 2 minutes I was scrolling, um, caught my eye right away. And then when I read immediately that it was about the other half location, I was like, okay, now I have to read this because she starts out by saying honest review of the of other half Chicago. And we've talked about, we talked about the formula of other half. And I think I've expressed like, I was kind of like, I was kind of lukewarm about that for Chicago and for what this collective is attempting to do. From what we read in that article. So she mentions that it's a nice space, beer is good, but the price point isn't mathing. $16 for a pint is excessive. Uh, Chicago communities are pretty amazing at supporting their community breweries. It'll be an interesting dynamic to see how it holds. Um, and then she mentioned how like Chicago has a really good beer scene and
Nice.
how she can't see the community really hitting this place often. Um, a pint should not be the price of a 4 pack. That's what I like. To me, that was like uh the thing that I really took away from it is the fact that other half is really expensive, and I've complained about other
Yeah,
half a lot on this podcast at this point. And I always say, hey, listen, the quality of the beer is great, but
you're paying.
I never complain about the pricing of it. It's expensive.
It's steep.
It is very steep. It's crazy steep. And that's when you factor in when you consider the fact that maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, you could justify the price point because of limited quantity and the fact that it was being imported from New York.
Right.
Okay, shipping costs, like it's going to be more expensive. But now they're pushing it out of Philly, like, and they have a location in DC. So for me, I'm like triangulated in between
Yeah.
Philly and DC to the point where like shipping shouldn't be an issue. Their beer is just as expensive as it ever was, and it's on the same price point as like Frost Brewworks from are they from Vermont?
Somewhere.
Like like states away. So it's just like that makes really good beer too in the same like level. And I'm just like, why? How is other half?
Yeah. I mean,
I just don't see it being like a viable beer spot because of that. Like, I think white people will go there, if I'm going to be honest. I
oh,
think
100%.
people will come in from the suburbs and they'll go there because it's other half.
Other half.
But I feel I just have this feeling that like other half is like the poster child of like the if you could pick a brewery to say this is the sign of gentrification in your area,
Mm.
I feel like other half is kind of that brewery.
Well, it's I'm trying to think of another like really good sign that would kind of remind me of because I don't know, like Iron Hill always is like a sign for that for me, but that's so hyper localized in the area, it's not like widespread enough to be like, oh yeah, Buffalo Wild Wings. Like I don't know. It's just weird, It's
Dubs dubs.
Sierra Nevada has those like locations in different cities now because they're in Carolina. You have New Belgium, I think as well, And you see places that are doing, the same thing in a way, like maybe not on the same scale as like not even scale, same quantity, but quality wise, like they're opening up these massive places other in different locations. And I now granted those places are like Colorado and California. I've never been to either of those locations as breweries in their other location, but I don't see the price point being that much different either. New York, other half made sense at one point when there was a little more exclusive. It was a lot harder to get to it. Those price points made sense, and I was always impressed by the places that carried them. But
Yeah,
with the
but
access to
now,
it now, I even with other half being in Philadelphia, it's still not like one of my go-to places. They'll offer something every once in a while that, oh yeah, I really want to try that, and I'll go try it. Um, but
it's not
for
something, and even like you were literally a
and
chill walk
I
from
was gonna
them.
say that was the only reason I went to it as much as I did. I think was because it was right there, and so like when I wanted a good easy beer, it was a massive place, especially when it was nice out. I could take Connor and have him sit there and not bite anybody. Um,
But you know what struck me though, now that I'm thinking about it, is like when I was first visiting down there, um, is the fact that you took me to Punch Buggy
yeah,
before even suggesting, hey, let's go to other half.
that's true.
You know what I mean? Which is the big new thing. But you're like, yo, let's check out Punch Buggy, which is a further walk, technically. Like
It
it's a
is.
little further, I
It's
think.
a lot further.
Yeah, it's like it's a further walk, but just once again, it comes down to Punch Buggy being embedded inside of the neighborhood a little more, being a little more welcoming in terms of just the approach of the beer. I think it's just more approachable. And I think that's the big thing here with other half is just like it's really not approachable. It's definitely like it's the lyrical miracle brewery. Like it's just rapping to rap. It's just saying things to
I'm
say
telling you, it
things.
is
It's not,
Drake.
there's no substance. Was that?
I'm telling you, other half is Drake.
Yeah, no substance. They're just putting out pop songs on the radio, pop songs, and there's no substance behind it.
But so the big point was like it was $16 for a 16-ounce beer. It was actually cheaper to get a smaller beer there. Apparently, like if you got a 12-ounce beer, the price point was actually a little better. So there's no like incentive to buy the
Weird.
bigger beer for less. For the same beer at a different bar, like nothing was comparable. So as like Afro Beer Chick was saying, like there's so many other good beer options within the city of Chicago that like what's the point just for the like novelty of having it? And it's just like again going back to like an Iron Hill. Like if I went into a new place and I saw an Iron Hill, it's probably the last place I want to go to because I know a lot of those beers are going to be the same. I know that they do brew specific beers at locations, different locations. They have different brewer at each one, or
Yeah.
whatever.
But I kind of at this point count Iron Hill like a BJ's Brew Pub. Like
Yeah,
what it is
Miller
it's a
Ale
chain
House.
restaurant that brews its own beer.
Yeah,
That's really it.
yeah,
It's not a brewery and it's not a microbrewery that's trying to be like the craft microbrewery type deal.
right.
I think those are such different lanes to be in.
Well, but that's like what I'm getting at with like the other half. Obviously, produces much better beer, but it's like I'm finding my desire to go check out their locations to be like much smaller. Like I
Yeah,
love
I
going to
agree.
Chicago and I love checking out breweries in Chicago. I have a martini bar in Chicago that I'm going to go check out before I go check out other half.
Yeah, I would if I were in Chicago, I might just stop in just out of the curiosity just to see what they've done because I feel like we've talked enough shit. We might as well just put our money where our
Of
mouth is
course,
if we're back in that. Well, if you're back in the area or if I'm in the area, to actually go see if what we're saying is correct.
right?
You know, but not because I'm genuinely interested in yet another other half.
I mean, like again,
How
last
many
time I was
halves are
in,
there at this point?
seriously, there's too many holes.
I mean,
When I went to Chicago last time, now granted it was partly because it was in the right area at the right time and open, but we went to Goose Island, um, and it wasn't because oh I really want to check out Goose Island, but it was because well we've talked enough shit.
okay, but the festivity ale
It
deserves
does, but I was
change.
glad that we went because they had the I think it was the old fashioned inspired barley wine,
Okay,
which ours is better.
obviously.
Yeah, but I think it was fun to go. It was interesting to see. I hate what they did with the place. And I can honestly like comment on that kind of stuff now though, right? Without it just being like a fucking like fuck nice, like fuck Goose Island. Their beer sucks. Blah 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 blah. Oh, have you checked out this location? Well, yes, I have, and I still think it's a horrible experience. You know. Um.
Horrible experience. Was this the fake industrial feel
Yeah.
that we were talking about on the last
Yeah.
live?
Exactly. Um. But I think it's fair to check those things out, even if you don't like necessarily. You're not going
You
to
have
enjoy
to
them.
give a place a fair shot. I feel like that's kind of what it is, you know. You're gonna give the place like a Afro Beer Chick was saying, like obviously she went, she gave it the shot, she
Mm-hmm.
gave it the honest she gave it the honest try and she gave an honest critique of it.
Yeah,
And I think anyone who's in that area, or if you're in Philly for the first time or New York for the first time, go ahead and check out Other Half for sure. Like you're going to at least enjoy the beer,
for sure gonna enjoy the
whether
beer.
it is, you know, whether what we're saying is, you can enjoy the beer and still think that what we're saying is accurate. I think both can be true because I do enjoy their beer. But it's just not worth it to me to keep buying their beer. More of their beer pops up on the shelf every time I go to a place to get beer, and I less and less want it
Before
because
I
I'm
was
looking at the
just like,
price points, and it's
yeah,
just like I don't need this.
yeah, I can find just as good of a beer potentially for less.
I could yeah I can do PA based Other Half, aka New Trail for
Right,
half the price.
other half light, other quarter.
The Other Trail, new
Um,
new new half.
yeah, and it's tough. I think the other half conversation is really tough because again, liking their beer so much, and it is one of the better breweries in quality. I think I just think like the quality that they make and what they do in their lane is so well done. I question if I've had the same beer 1,000 times, just under different names, but so do I with Hidden River. So um,
Yeah, yeah, Hidden River. But like it is a little different because Hidden River is about the experience of the place too.
yeah, for sure.
It's called Hidden River for a very good reason. There's a lot of history there. You're in a historical place and it feels that way. The ambience, if you will, is different. Other half is cool, but it kind of just the other, like, and this is Other Half in Philly. I don't know about the other locations, but like the Other Half in Philly, it's just like it's cool, it's sleek, it's nice, but there's no like unique soul to it that
And
would
that
make me want to go back to it.
and that's so interesting because it is such a like 180 from their Brooklyn location, which we should go to. Like
Yeah.
I've been. I think Hannah would easily find any excuse to go. So it's cool. It's a hole in the wall. Like they have no food. You just Uber Eats the shit there. There's a McDonald's half a block down. Um, like it's cool. The beer list I think is a little more extensive. You even the brewing setup is like there's a big hole in the wall and there's the brewery. Like it's really interesting. Um, and I think I was hoping for some of that to translate over down down here, and like I understand, like this was an old Goose Island place anyway, so it's
Yeah,
you know
maybe that's fair enough. That's probably fair enough. Like you took over a place that was already soulless.
right.
How much can you do with so much space of nothing,
You can
you
only
know?
stuff so much soul back in,
Yeah. Yeah, you can only put so much soul back in something.
you know. But yeah, it's interesting conversation for sure.
Yeah.
How things move forward, especially when you see them taking over so rampantly. I think at this
They're
point
running rampant.
I would have rather have do something like Sierra Nevada or New Belgium in the sense of opening up, go down to Asheville and open up a huge fucking location and make it like
Yeah. I mean, maybe fair enough that they're not large enough yet, but perhaps like I don't know what it's like
or you know
right
what, to
now
that
compared
point,
to what it was 2 years ago before the Philly location opened up, but I gotta imagine that if any time for it to happen, it would be now.
I was gonna say to the other point, like to the point of not large enough or anything like that. Rather than spend all this time, resources, money, and people on
Yeah,
having all these locations,
just move.
figure out a way to make it more affordable.
That too, like just keep the two locations open and make it easier. Like
it
I
it
just don't.
it's really hard to see some of these price points when you're telling me that you are making enough money to open up all this other shit.
Yeah, it's just like, listen, I don't care what like fucking backwoods Australian farmer you got this or New Zealand farmer you got this fucking hop from to do this fucking gear. That's the same grain base, like the same everything except you just took out this hop and you put that hop in with a slightly different amount. And it's just like, I get it. At some point, are we even going to call it a brewery? It's more of like a hoppery, a blendery of hopperies, a hop blendery. You know,
Right.
it because the fact that you have to question having the same beer all the time, and then you look at like, they always have what the notes are supposed to be. Half the time it's the same shit.
Right.
It's citrus. It's I don't fucking know. Name any other type of fruit. There's probably that in there. Honey a lot of the time. Pine. It's like at what point are we actually making a new beer and what
Don't
point are we just
pine if I
rehashing
do.
the same? Was that
That was a bad beer name.
Henneken Brew Walker?
Don't pine if I do.
Write that one down. What about pining for the old days? Ooh, we could have a beer called Pine Tar for baseball season.
Yo, I like that.
Yeah.
Well, I've hit a point where I kind of need to use the bathroom, which usually ends up being
Right.
huh?
As do I.
Which usually ends up being the end point of the episode is based off of our bladders. So as we
Yeah.
get older, the shows will get shorter.
Wait. Yeah, actually. Or not. You've already hit elderly bladder age, so I think you're just coasting at this point.
The fact that I've like been able to keep like an hour and 20 minutes is
I
very
was gonna
impressive.
say, like, you've done pretty well today.
Well, what you don't see is the catheter. Um,
Just have a line pumping in.
you just see like a tube here, and as the yellow starts creeping up.
I thought you were just gonna say you have a chamber pot.
Yeah.
You're just sitting on a chamber pot the whole time.
um,
Yeah, don't worry about that.
I'm trying to remember if we had any other conversational points for today before we wrap this up.
No, man. Pagoda, I wanted to talk about, and other half, which I'm always up for another half gripe sesh. So,
Um,
uh,
I
yeah,
think I think what would be nice is don't think either of us had it prepared for today, but we do have our 2023 report from Untapped, and maybe next time we can jump into that and like talk about those trends and stuff. I
Yeah,
alluded to
let's
that a
do
little
that.
bit today.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah,
Grand
because
Hat and Flash was like my number one beer, I think.
nice. I need to actually. I looked at mine briefly, and then I didn't look at it in detail because I thought maybe I figured maybe we would be doing it on like the very last live, but
Yeah,
then we got together and obviously we weren't going to talk about it with friends.
yeah,
So
yeah.
uh,
Also, what's your 2023 beer and review look like? Who again just love the fact that he's into craft beer now.
yeah, I mean because like literally I think the last time I physically saw him, he was still like iffy on beer
Right.
in general. So that's always fun to see. We've indoctrinated another one.
Look, he bought a whole case of the Grand Hat. He liked it that much.
That is amazing. I'm glad people enjoy it so much.
Yeah, he was
It,
very much like people in Chicago need to try it.
which is wild. Like it's wild to have that kind of support too from people. Obviously, Alsops is one of those types of supportive people. But I also enjoy the fact that with Alsop, like he's gonna support it only if he likes it. You know what I mean? Like he's not gonna go out of his way. If he hated it, like the most he would give us was like, it's okay.
Right. I was like, no, you try.
Okay, I like the effort.
Right. And he would have done it in a way where like I could just accept
So the fact that he actually went out of his way to do that, yeah, it's a big deal. I think to me, it's a big deal.
it. Yeah.
So
Um to that to wrap it up, uh my most checked in brewery last year actually was from Lost Planet Brewing Company, which is in Royersford. Um
ooh,
so
okay,
we have to check it out. It's in an old firehouse, so very like Oakbrook esque in terms of the idea. Just a much bigger firehouse. And so it's pretty good. The reason why it's on that list for being checked in so many times is because I've went at least twice this past year. Went with Hannah when it first opened up, and then I went with my mom most recently with Hannah
okay,
as well. And it's just good, and it's small enough that when I posted it, they like were like, "Hey, like we really value like the support that you guys have been giving." So, uh, like it
wow,
that kind of connection is just like, yeah. Back to the other half point, if I'm in Chicago, am I gonna like support them or support somebody else who probably deserves it more?
yeah, and is local to the area
Yeah,
too.
yeah. But now it's finally hitting me the bladder, so I just would like to say happy birthday one last time. Um,
Hey,
I'm gonna probably come back after I use the bathroom and chat with you for a little bit more, but please enjoy your time in Virginia. I am sorry I'm not up with you celebrating, but we need to get together again. That's not the last time was like, oh, we have to do a meeting, but it was more of a surprise. Like, here's some people. But
yeah,
next time, I would just like to get up and like just enjoy some time with you again soon. So we'll be up to Lancaster soon.
heck yeah, come out to Lancaster. Let's play some tennis,
Yes,
do
yes.
things. All right,
All right. Until next time.
peace.
Peace.
Peace.